I remembered the exact moment they knocked on my door, because everything before that suddenly felt like it belonged to someone else's life. It was a Tuesday, late afternoon, the kind of quiet suburban day where nothing ever really happens. I was standing barefoot in my kitchen, staring at my phone, rereading the last message my husband had sent me 12 hours earlier. It was short, too short. Just, going dark for a bit. Love you. No emoji, no joke, no tell Daisy I miss her, like he always added about our golden retriever. I told myself it was normal. He'd been deployed long enough that I should have been used to the silence by now. But something about that message sat wrong in my chest, like a splinter I couldn't dig out. That's when I heard the knock. Not a casual knock, not a neighbor stopping by or a package delivery. It was firm, official, the kind of knock that doesn't wait for permission. I froze. Every military spouse knows that knock. You pretend you don't, you push it to the back of your mind, but it lives there, quiet and patient, waiting for its moment. I walked to the door slowly, like if I moved fast, I might trip into a different reality. My hand hovered over the handle for a second too long. I remember thinking, if I don't open it, then it's not real. But I opened it. 2 men in uniform stood on my porch, one older, one younger, both wearing those expressions they must practice, controlled, respectful, already mourning someone they didn't know. I don't remember their names. I don't remember most of what they said either. I just remember the phrase, "We regret to inform you." And then everything after that felt like it was underwater. My husband, Caleb, was gone, killed during a classified operation overseas. They couldn't give details. They never can. It was framed as bravery, honor, sacrifice. Words that are supposed to mean something. Words that are supposed to fill the space someone leaves behind. They don't. They just echo. I remember nodding. I remember saying, okay, like they just told me my order was delayed or something equally meaningless. I remember signing a paper, though I couldn't tell you what it said. And then they left. They just left. Closed the door behind them like they hadn't just ended my life. I stood there in the entryway for what felt like hours, staring at the wood crane of the door, tracing the lines with my eyes over and over again, like I could find some hidden message that would undo everything. Daisy started whining behind me. That's what broke me. Not the words, not the uniforms, not the finality of it. It was my Gog, confused and restless, sensing something had shifted in the world. I slid down the door and started crying in a way I didn't recognize. It wasn't graceful. It wasn't quiet. It was raw and ugly and loud, like my body was trying to tear something out of itself. Because Caleb wasn't just my husband. He was the center of everything. We met in college. He was the kind of guy everyone liked without trying. Easy smile, calm presence, the kind of confidence that didn't need to be loud. I was louder, messier, more emotional. He used to joke that I was the storm and he was the anchor, and somehow it worked. We got married 2 years after graduation. Small ceremony, nothing fancy. Just close friends, family, and that feeling that we were stepping into something solid. When he joined the military, I supported him. I really did. I told myself it was part of who he was.
That I couldn't love him halfway. That loving him meant accepting the risk. But nobody tells you what that risk actually feels like when it shows up at your door. The days after his death blurred together. Phone calls, endless phone calls. His parents, broken in a way that scared me. Friends who didn't know what to say, so they said too much or too little. Military officials organizing things I couldn't process. The funeral was a haze of folded flags, stiff hugs, and phrases I wanted to scream at. He's in a better place. He died a hero. Stay strong. I didn't want strength. I wanted him. My sister Lauren flew in 2 days after the notification. We'd always been close, but not in a constant talk every day kind of way. More like when we needed each other, we showed up. No questions asked. And she showed up. She stayed in the guest room, took over cooking, handled calls when I couldn't speak, made sure I drank water, even when I didn't want to. She didn't try to fix anything. She didn't throw empty comfort at me. She just stayed. Sometimes we'd sit on the couch in silence for hours. The TV would be on, but neither of us watched it. It was just background noise, something to fill the unbearable quiet. Other times I'd talk, not in a structured way, just fragments, memories of Caleb, the way he used to leave his boots by the door, even though I asked him 100 times not to, the way he'd always kiss my forehead before leaving, even if we were mid-argument. Lauren would listen, really listen, not interrupting, not redirecting, just being there.
About a week after the funeral, I finally went into our bedroom. I hadn't been able to before. It felt wrong, like stepping into a space that no longer belonged to me. But I couldn't avoid it forever. The room still smelled like him, faintly, but enough to hit me like a punch to the chest. His side of the bed was untouched, the sheets still slightly wrinkled from the last time he'd slept there before deployment. I sat down on the edge of the mattress and just stared. Everything was still in place. His watch on the nightstand, his book half read, a t-shirt draped over the chair. It looked like he could walk in at any moment. That illusion broke me again. I don't know how long I sat there before Lauren came in quietly and sat beside me. "I can help you pack some things if you want," she said gently. I shook my head. "Not yet." She nodded, like she understood, even if she didn't. We didn't touch anything that day. But the next day, something shifted. I woke up with this restless energy, like if I didn't move, I'd drown in my own thoughts. So I started small. His closet. I told myself I'd just organize it, not get rid of anything, just make it neater. Lauren joined me, silently. We worked side by side, folding, hanging, stacking. Every item felt like a memory. A hoodie he wore on cold mornings, a pair of jeans he refused to throw away even though they were worn out. His uniforms, perfectly pressed, lined up like they were still waiting for him. I remember pausing when I got to a small metal lockbox on the top shelf. It wasn't something I'd paid much attention to before. Caleb had always been private about certain things, especially anything related to his work. "Do you know what's in there?" Lauren asked. I shook my head. "Probably just documents, military stuff." She nodded, but didn't say anything else. I reached up and pulled it down. It was heavier than I expected.
There was no visible key. For a second, I considered putting it back, respecting his privacy, even now. But then this thought crept in, quiet and persistent. He's gone. Whatever's in here, it's part of him. And I was his wife. I deserved to know him completely. At least, that's what I told myself. "Do you want to open it?" Lauren asked softly. I hesitated. Then I nodded. We ended up taking it to the kitchen table. I grabbed a small screwdriver from the junk drawer, my hands shaking slightly. It took a few minutes, but eventually, the latch gave way with a sharp click. I remember that sound clearly, like something breaking open that wasn't meant to be touched. Inside were documents, just like I'd expected, but also other things. A second phone, not his regular one. This one was older, scratched, completely powered off. A small stack of printed emails, and an envelope. My name was written on it, not in his usual casual handwriting. This was more deliberate, careful, like he'd taken his time with each letter. I felt my chest tighten. "Do you want me to leave?" Lauren asked. I shook my head immediately. "No, stay." My fingers trembled as I picked up the envelope. It felt heavier than it should have, like it carried more than just paper. I stared at my name for a long moment, my mind racing through possibilities I couldn't quite form. Why hadn't he told me about this? Why hide it? And why leave something like this behind without ever mentioning it? "Open it," Lauren said quietly. So I did. And the moment I unfolded that letter, I realized something was very, very wrong. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the paper before I even got it fully open. I remember Lauren reaching out like she was about to steady me, then stopping herself halfway, like she knew this was something I had to face on my own. The first thing I noticed was the date. It wasn't recent. It was written almost 3 months before Caleb's last deployment. That alone made my stomach twist, because if he had written me something that far in advance and never told me about it, then whatever was in that letter wasn't something he ever intended to explain in person. I forced myself to focus. "Hey, Em," it started. That was normal. He always called me Em. But everything after that felt off. Not cold, not distant, just careful. Like every word had been weighed and rewritten a dozen times before landing on the page. If you're reading this, then something didn't go the way it was supposed to. I swallowed hard, my eyes flitting up for a second, like I expected Lauren to say something, to interrupt, to somehow stop what was coming. She didn't. She just sat there, watching me, her face tight with concern. I looked back down. "I need you to understand that everything I'm about to tell you comes from a place of love. I know that might not make sense right away. It might never make sense. But I couldn't leave without giving you the truth.
even if it hurts you. My chest tightened. That word, truth, it felt heavy, dangerous. I've been keeping something from you, not because I wanted to lie to you, but because I thought I could fix it before it ever reached you. I thought I could protect you from it. My heart started pounding harder, faster, like it was trying to outrun whatever I was about to read. About a year ago, I was assigned to an operation that wasn't officially on record. You know how that works. Things get compartmentalized.
You're told only what you need to know. You don't ask questions. That part made sense, or at least it fit into the version of his life I thought I understood. But then, I met someone during that time. Her name is Rachel. The world didn't shatter all at once. It cracked, slow, precise, like a fault line splitting open under my feet. I felt my grip on the paper tighten. My brain tried to reject it immediately. No, that's not what this is. There's another explanation. There has to be. But my eyes kept moving. I didn't plan for it. I didn't go looking for it. It just happened. Long hours, high stress, being in a place where nothing feels real. You start holding on to whatever feels human. My throat went dry. Lauren shifted slightly in her seat, like she could feel the tension building in the room, but she still didn't say anything. I told myself it wasn't real, that it was just a situation, something that would end the second I came home to you. A sharp, bitter thought cut through me, but it didn't end, did it? I kept reading. But it didn't end, and that's on me. That's where I failed you. My vision blurred for a second, but I forced myself to keep going. She got pregnant. The words didn't register at first. They just sat there, flat, lifeless, like they belonged to someone else's story. And then they hit, hard. My stomach dropped so suddenly I had to grab the edge of the table to steady myself. Lauren leaned forward this time, her voice barely above a whisper. What is it? I couldn't answer her. Not yet. I kept reading, even though every instinct in my body was screaming at me to stop. There's a chance the child is mine. I don't know for sure. We were careful, but not careful enough, and I couldn't ignore it when she told me. My hands were trembling so badly now the paper was shaking with them. You deserve to hear this from me, not from anyone else. I was going to tell you when I got back. I had a plan. I was going to take responsibility, but I was also going to fight for us. I wasn't going to let one mistake destroy what we have. One mistake. That phrase burned, like he'd reduced everything, our marriage, our life, our trust, to something small enough to dismiss. I love you. That hasn't changed. It won't change, but I won't lie to you and pretend this didn't happen. If I don't make it back, I need you to know the truth so you're not blindsided later. My breath caught in my chest. If someone reaches out to you, if Rachel contacts you, please hear her out. She's not a bad person. She didn't know about you at first, and by the time she did, things were already complicated. Complicated. I almost laughed, except it came out as something broken and sharp. Lauren flinched at the sound. There's more I want to explain, but I don't know how much time I'll have. Just know that you were always my home. No matter where I was, no matter what I messed up, you were the one thing that was real to me. Tears were streaming down my face now, dripping onto the paper, smearing the ink slightly. I'm sorry, Em. I'm so sorry. The letter ended there. No signature, no final words, just that apology, hanging in the air like it was supposed to be enough. It wasn't. It would never be. I didn't realize I had stopped breathing until Lauren gently touched my arm. Emily, what's going on? I looked up at her, my vision distorted, my thoughts scattered and sharp all at once. My voice cracked. He was seeing someone else. The words felt foreign in my mouth, like they didn't belong to my life. Lauren's expression shifted instantly. Shock, anger, confusion. What? I swallowed hard, forcing the rest out. She might have his kid. Silence filled the kitchen, heavy, suffocating. Lauren leaned back slightly, like she'd just been physically pushed. You're kidding? I shook my head slowly. I wish I was. For a few seconds, neither of us said anything. Then Lauren reached for the letter. Can I? I hesitated.
Every part of me wanted to snatch it back, to keep it contained, to not let anyone else see the words that had just ripped my world apart. But I nodded. She read it quickly, her jaw tightening more with every line. By the time she finished, her entire posture had changed. She wasn't just shocked anymore. She was angry. "Are you serious right now?" she muttered, more to herself than to me. This is insane." I let out a hollow laugh. "Yeah, that's one word for it." She looked up at me, her eyes sharp. "He cheated on you, Emily. He got another woman pregnant. That's not complicated. That's—" "I know what it is," I snapped, a little harsher than I meant to. She stopped, blinking at me. I took a shaky breath, pressing my hands against the table like I needed something solid to hold on to. I don't understand." And that was the truth. Because Caleb wasn't careless. He wasn't impulsive. He wasn't the kind of man who let things just happen. Everything about him had always been intentional, thoughtful. So how did something like this fit into that? It didn't, unless there was more. My eyes drifted back to the contents of the lockbox still spread across the table, the second phone, the printed emails, things he hadn't mentioned in the letter. Lauren followed my gaze. "What's on that phone?" she asked quietly. I swallowed. "I don't know." But I had a feeling it wasn't going to make things better. If anything, it was going to make everything worse. I reached for the phone slowly, like it might burn me if I touched it. It was completely dead. No power. Lauren stood up immediately. "I'll grab a charger." She moved quickly, disappearing down the hallway, leaving me alone with the silence again. Alone with the truth that Caleb, the man I had built my entire life around, had been living a second life I knew nothing about. And maybe, not just a second life, something deeper, something darker, because that letter didn't feel like the whole story. Not even close. Lauren came back a minute later, holding out a charging cable. "Here." I plugged the phone in, my fingers still trembling. We both watched the screen, waiting. The black display flickered once, then again. And finally it lit up. No lock screen photo, no notifications, just a plain passcode prompt. "Of course." Lauren exhaled slowly. "Do you know the code?" I stared at it, my mind racing. Birthdays, anniversaries, simple combinations. I tried a few. None of them worked. Each failed attempt felt like another wall going up between me and whatever truth was buried inside that device. After the fifth try, I pulled my hand back, frustrated. "I don't get it. He wouldn't lock me out." Lauren didn't respond right away. She was staring at the phone, her expression shifting into something more focused, analytical. "Maybe he didn't think you'd be the one opening it," she said quietly. I looked at her. "What does that mean?"
She hesitated, like she was choosing her words carefully. "Emily, what if this wasn't meant for you to find?" A cold feeling settled in my chest. Because that thought, it made too much sense. And suddenly, the letter didn't feel like a confession anymore. It felt like a warning. I kept staring at that phone like it was going to explain itself if I looked long enough. The screen stayed lit for a few seconds, then dimmed again, like it was waiting, like it knew something I didn't. Lauren leaned closer over my shoulder. "There's got to be a way in," she said quietly. "Try something else." I shook my head. I already tried everything that makes sense, but sense didn't feel like it applied anymore. Nothing about this did. I picked the phone up again, turning it over in my hands. It was heavier than it looked, older than the one Caleb normally used. Scratches along the edges, a faint crack near the corner of the screen. Not something you'd carry unless you were trying not to be noticed. Lauren was pacing now, slow and restless. "Okay, think. If he didn't want you to open it, why leave it where you'd find it?" "That's what I don't understand," I said, my voice tight. "He hid it, locked it away, but he also wrote me a letter telling me about Rachel." Saying her name still felt unreal, like I was talking about a character in someone else's life. Lauren stopped pacing. "Do you think she knows about this?" "I don't know what she knows," I said. "I don't even know who she is." The silence between us grew heavier. Then Lauren said something that made my stomach twist. "Maybe she's not just someone he met overseas." I looked up at her. "What are you saying?" She hesitated, then shrugged slightly, like she didn't want to say it out loud either. "I'm saying, what if this wasn't just cheating?" I felt my chest tighten. "That's not helpful." "I'm serious," she said. "Think about it. He's military, classified assignments, a second phone nobody knows about, a woman who suddenly appears with a pregnancy claim, and then a death notification that comes with no details." My grip on the phone tightened. "You think something else happened to him?" "I think," she said carefully, "that we don't actually know what happened to him." That hit differently, because I had accepted it.
Death was supposed to be final, clean, official. But this didn't feel clean. Nothing about it did. I looked down at the phone again, my mind spinning. If this phone isn't his main one, I said slowly, then whose is it? Lauren stepped closer again. There's only one way to find out what's on it. I already knew what she meant. We needed access. We needed the passcode. I exhaled sharply, frustration creeping in again. I already tried everything obvious. Lauren watched me for a second, then said, "What if it's not obvious?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" She pointed slightly toward the letter on the table. "Think about how he wrote it. He was careful, overly careful, like every word was measured. That's not a guy who leaves a simple passcode." I looked back down at the phone. "You think it's something hidden. I think it's something personal," she said, "but not in the way you're expecting." My thoughts started racing again. Anniversary dates, pet names, inside jokes, coordinates of where we met. I tried again. Nothing. Each attempt just made the phone feel more distant, like it was refusing me on purpose. Lauren crossed her arms.
Okay, stop guessing. What's something only he would think matters enough to use? I paused. That question sat in my head longer than it should have. Something only he would think mattered enough. Not what I thought mattered, not what made sense to me, what mattered to him. And then something small surfaced, a memory. Caleb sitting at the edge of our bed one night before deployment, turning his phone over in his hand, staring at it like he was thinking too hard. I had asked him what he was doing. He just smiled and said, "Setting things up in case I get careless." I had remembered laughing at the time. Now it didn't feel like a joke. My fingers moved before I fully committed to the thought. I typed in a number, a sequence I hadn't thought about in years. Not a date, not a name. A code he once used for a storage locker during college, something meaningless to anyone else. Something he only ever mentioned once. The phone paused. Lauren leaned in closer. Did it work? For a second, nothing happened. Then the screen flickered and unlocked. My breath caught so hard it hurt. Lauren let out a quiet, disbelieving sound. "You're kidding!" But I wasn't looking at her anymore. I was looking at what was on the phone. It wasn't normal. There were almost no apps, no personal photos, no contacts labeled with names. Just folders, neatly arranged, too neatly arranged. One was labeled O. Another was labeled R. Another was labeled C. I stared at them, my confusion growing again. "What is this?" I whispered. Lauren frowned. "Open one." My finger hovered over the screen. Then I tapped R. The folder opened instantly. Inside were files, messages, screenshots. My stomach dropped before I even read the first line. Because the first message wasn't from Caleb. It was from Rachel. And the conversation wasn't what I expected. There was no romance, no casual flirting, no emotional affair language. It was coordination. Dates, locations, times, and references to something called Phase 2. Lauren leaned in, reading over my shoulder. "What the hell is this?" she muttered. I kept scrolling, message after message, some short, some coded. One stood out. Subject confirmed compromised. Extraction may proceed after confirmation window closes. I felt my mouth go dry. "This doesn't make sense," I said. "This isn't personal." Lauren grabbed the edge of the table. "Emily, this sounds like what?" I cut in sharply. She hesitated again, and for the first time her voice wasn't just confused, it was uneasy. "Like an operation." The word hung there. Heavy. Unavoidable. I shook my head immediately. No, that's not. He would have told me." "Would he?" she asked quietly. "After everything in that letter?" I didn't answer, because I didn't know anymore. I went back into the folder. Another file caught my attention. A video. My finger hovered over it. Lauren whispered, "Don't jump into that yet." But I already pressed it. The screen loaded. And then I saw him. Caleb. Alive. Standing in a dim room I didn't recognize, wearing civilian clothes, his face serious in a way I had never seen before. My entire body went cold. "No," I whispered. Lauren grabbed my arm. "Emily, wait." But I couldn't hear her properly.
Caleb on the screen looked directly into the camera, not smiling, not relaxed, focused. "I don't have much time," he said. My knees nearly gave out. "This is for Emily," he continued.
"If you're seeing this, then things didn't go the way I hoped." Lauren's grip tightened on my arm. "I need you to listen carefully," he said. "Everything you think you know about my last deployment, it isn't the full picture." My heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. "There are people involved who cannot be named," he continued. "And Rachel, she was never just personal." I felt my vision blur. "This wasn't an affair," he said. "It was cover." Lauren looked at me sharply. "Cover for what?" But I couldn't answer, because Caleb continued. "I used my real life to protect an operation, and I know what that means for you. I know what it looks like, but I need you to understand." The video glitched slightly. His voice distorted for a moment, then came back clearer. "If I didn't do this, you would have been in danger too." I felt like the air had been pulled out of the room. "Rachel was part of the operation," he said, "and so was the pregnancy." My mind rejected that instantly. No, that didn't make sense. Nothing about that made sense. But he wasn't finished. "I made choices you will hate me for," he said quietly, "but I made them to keep you out of something you were never meant to be part of." The video cut suddenly. Just like that. Black screen. Silence. Lauren stared at the phone. That's it. But I wasn't moving. I couldn't, because everything inside me had just split into two realities. The man I buried and the man who just spoke to me. And they did not match. Lauren finally broke the silence. "Emily, I think your husband didn't die the way they said he did." I swallowed hard, my voice barely coming out. "Then where is he?" Neither of us had an answer, but I could feel it now. This wasn't over, not even close. And somewhere in all of this, Rachel wasn't just a name. She was the key to everything. The room felt smaller after that video ended, like the walls had shifted in while we were watching and forgot to shift back. The phone was still in my hand, but it didn't feel like an object anymore. It felt like a doorway I had already walked through without realizing it. Lauren broke the silence first, her voice low and tight. That wasn't a normal goodbye message. I didn't respond right away. My eyes were still locked on the black screen, waiting for it to do something else. Anything else. Another clip. Another explanation. A correction. But it stayed dead silent. Finally, I set it down on the table like it might explode. "No," I said quietly. "It wasn't." Lauren exhaled sharply and leaned back in her chair, running a hand through her hair. "So what the hell was that?" Because that didn't sound like cheating. That sounded like intelligence work, like spy stuff. The word hung there between us, ridiculous and heavy at the same time. I shook my head slowly. Caleb was military, not that. But even as I said it, I hated how unsure I sounded, because I had watched him. I had lived next to him for years, and I was starting to realize I didn't actually know where his job ended and his secrets began. Lauren stood up and started pacing again, faster this time. "Okay, let's slow down. Let's just break this apart. He says Rachel was part of an operation, and the pregnancy—" "Stop," I cut in, my voice sharper than I intended. She stopped immediately. I pressed my fingers into my temples, trying to hold my thoughts in place. "Don't say it like that." "Like what?" "Like it's part of a system," I said.
Like a plan? Like people just assign pregnancies and secrets and whatever else that was. Lauren softened slightly. "I'm not saying that. I'm just saying this is bigger than what you thought it was." That part landed too close to the truth. I looked back at the phone. The folders were still open. ORC, like pieces of something I didn't understand yet. My hand moved again before I fully decided to. I opened O. Inside was a single document. No messages this time, just coordinates. 3 sets of them, each one followed by a date and a short label. Window A, Window B, Window C. Lauren leaned over. "Those are locations." "I can see that," I muttered. My eyes scanned the coordinates, trying to make sense of them. They weren't local, not even close. Different states, different regions. Then I noticed something that made my stomach tighten again. The dates. One of them matched the week Caleb was declared missing in action. My breath caught. "No," I whispered. Lauren frowned. "What?" I pointed at the screen. "That one. That date. That's when they told me he died." Her face changed instantly. "You're sure?" I nodded slowly. "I remember it." Silence dropped between us again, heavier than before. Lauren sat back down. "So either this is connected, or it's a coincidence." "It doesn't feel like a coincidence," I said. I opened the second folder, R. My fingers hesitated for half a second before tapping it. This one was different. No files, just one long thread of messages, and a contact saved only as a single initial, R. Rachel. My throat tightened as I opened it. The first message was simple. R. You need to tell her before deployment. Caleb. Not yet. I blinked, reading it again. Lauren leaned in closer. Tell who? I didn't answer. I kept reading. R. If she hears it from anyone else, she won't trust you again. Caleb. I'm managing it. R. You're delaying it. There's a difference. My chest felt tight again, but not in the same way as before. This wasn't romantic. It didn't read like betrayal in the way I had imagined it. It read like pressure, like urgency, like two people arguing about timing. Lauren muttered, "This is weird." I kept going. Caleb. The operation can't be compromised. If she knows too early, she becomes a target. My hand froze. Lauren's voice dropped. Target. I didn't answer her. My eyes stayed locked on the screen. R. You're still treating her like she's separate from it. She's not. Caleb. She is to me. That line hit harder than the rest. Not because it was romantic, because it sounded like a mistake, like something someone says when they're trying to hold two realities apart. Lauren looked at me. Emilis, what is this? I swallowed. I don't know. But that wasn't fully true anymore, because pieces were starting to form something ugly and incomplete in my mind. Caleb hadn't just been hiding an affair. He had been hiding structure, movement, planning, risk. I opened the last folder. See. This one took longer to load. When it finally opened, there was only one file inside. A document labeled Contingency. My stomach dropped again. Lauren went still. That sounds serious. It sounds like something he didn't want me to see, I said. I opened it. The first page was text-heavy, formatted like instructions. Not emotional, not personal, operational. My eyes scanned quickly, and then I saw my name, Emily Walker. My breath stopped. Lauren leaned in, reading along.
Under my name was a line, Civilian Asset Exposure Risk, High. I felt my blood go cold. What does that mean? I whispered. Lauren didn't answer immediately. Her face had gone pale in a way I hadn't seen before. Then she said, very slowly, Emily, I think you were part of this without knowing it. I shook my head immediately. No, I wasn't part of anything. But even as I said it, my memory started shifting. The late-night calls he couldn't explain, the sudden changes in schedules, the times he'd ask me oddly specific questions about routines, places I went, people I spoke to. At the time, it felt like normal curiosity. Now it didn't. Now it felt like data collection. My breathing got uneven. This doesn't make sense, I said again, more desperate now. I'm not important. I'm just... Lauren cut me off gently. Wife of an active duty operator with access to classified deployments? That makes you relevant whether you wanted it or not. I stood up too fast, the chair scraping behind me. Stop saying it like that. I'm not trying to scare you, she said quickly. I'm trying to understand it. But I was already losing my grip on understanding because Caleb's voice from the video kept replaying in my head. If I didn't do this, you would have been in danger too. I looked down at the document again, and that's when I saw the last paragraph, a line that made everything else feel like it had been leading here. If subject Caleb Walker is neutralized, initiate phase contingency, Emily Walker relocation protocol. My knees went weak. Lauren grabbed my arm instantly. Hey, what is it? I couldn't speak for a second. Then I forced it out. He didn't just die, I said. Lauren stared at me. What do you mean? My voice broke slightly. He was either removed. The word felt wrong in my mouth. Lauren shook her head. Removed by who? I looked at her, but I didn't have an answer that made sense, because every direction this pointed to was worse than the last. And then my phone, my personal phone, buzzed on the counter. One notification, unknown number, no name, just a message preview. You were not supposed to open the box. Lauren saw it too, and for the first time since this started, neither of us moved.